Hello there. Hello, hello, hello. So, this is kind of a follow-up to the stream that I did on Wednesday. It, n I'm going to admit that on Wednesday, I did not have as good of an understanding of what numbers and even the procedures for how a hair follicle drug test works. So, some of what I said, some of what I said on that stream was not accurate. So I decided that instead of just leaving that lie, I was going to go and find for myself how this stuff works. Oh, and I actually what one sec, I need to need to go take a quick screenshot because part of why I decided to do that was because of a particular message that I saw from Dick Masterson and a couple other people, but Dick in particular. So give me one sec. Is there? Do. Maybe just go to Dick Masterson's page. Eh, blah. Oh, I will just paraphrase it for the moment. And Dick Masterson in the put out there that it, of course, this test of course this is a false test. With the levels that it tested at, the kid would be dead. So of course it's false. And I was like, really? I mean, it sounds accurate because the testing came out at 5,000 PG over MG when the cutoff level was 500. So it sounds like the Dragon Ball Z thing of his power level is at 5,000. Oh my god! So I mean, what he said actually sounds accurate, but I mean, the kid's still alive, and I'm not quite so willing to just immediately say, "Oh my god." Of course, of course, there is a government conspiracy. So it kind of led me to decide to look into this stuff a little bit. And then I was seeing people talking about how, you know, this test may have been maybe bunked because there may have just been cocaine that somehow got into this kid's hair. Well, first of all, you guys realize that this doesn't look good for you because that means that you're admitting that Nick actually had cocaine in the same vicinity as his kid. You get that, right? Second of all, I don't tend to believe that the tests that are being administered are going to be quite so easily you quite so easily screwed with, you might say. But I mean, I didn't know anything about this stuff. It's never been my area of expertise. I mean, I've dealt it with looking at so and so tested positive for such and such, and but I was never someone that needed to verify whether it was true or not. So never something that I really knew much about. So, like I said, I decided to do a little bit of my own research on this. Oh, and you might notice that with what I'm showing here, I have learned how and I mean, it wasn't that hard to learn, but I have learned how to redact things. So in the future, I will probably redact things. So anyone that might have been annoyed with me for not redacting last time, it's redacted now. I don't feel bad about it though because it was already all over the place. So mm. So now, oh, with all that said, and I know that I don't have that the people that I that I have people that are watching on Twitter, or theoretically, I mean, I'm still not sure about exactly how that metric works, but I've been going for about 5 minutes, so anybody who shows up right now, who shows up, can just deal with me in the middle of my presentation, if you know what I'm saying. So I have two documents that I wanted to share. The first one goes over or, or the test itself more in general. So the first one doesn't really deal with what the numbers mean. Which, by the way, finding a document that explains what the numbers mean, that was the real bitch, because that took a lot of monkeying around with Google searches to finally find. But actually finding stuff to explain how the drug test works itself wasn't that hard. So that is what I'm going to be sharing with you first. So this one is from mytimerecovery.com. Mm, and it looks like it has like this is some sort of rehab slash detox center. And I'm going to say it just it, just cards on the table. I haven't gone through vetting the exact sources and stuff. So if someone wants to show me that the sources that I have is actually wrong, feel free. But these are my sources. So from my time recovery, you, you, there are various tests that can be performed to determine whether someone has used drugs recently. You're probably familiar with urine tests that indicate this information. I mean, I think most people are familiar with urine tests. I mean, I think at some point or another, if you're or at the age where you've gotten a job, there's a good chance you've gotten a urine test. So yeah. Now the urine test is something that's going to really help for finding out whether you did something recently. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. The hair follicle test is not going to help with that. The hair follicle test it tends to take about 5 days before, or I should say that it's only going to detect at usage at about 5 days, but it goes out to 90 days. So let's say an accident happened, or they want to know if you're using some, or for whatever reason they want to know if you're using something right now. They're going to want the urine test because that stuff's going to be in your urine. If they did a hair follicle drug test and you had just taken the drugs, it's not going to come back positive because it hasn't had a chance to get in there. So yeah, spoiler alert for all this stuff. However, this type of test, so talk about urine test here. However, this type of test typically only shows if drugs have been used within a short period of time before the test, like I was just saying. That's why many employers are choosing to have a potential and existing employees drug tested using their hair instead of urine. This is called a hair follicle drug test. A hair follicle drug test screens for the misuse of prescription medication and illicit drug use. The test involves a small number of hair strands being cut from your head close to the scalp. Then your hair sample is tested by a lab to determine if there has been any drug use for the last 90 days. Now, to be accurate, when it says a hair follicle drug test, it is not actually testing the follicle, because if they were testing the follicle, they would need to actually pull it from your head, and they're not. That's not actually what they're doing. They are, as it says, as a cutting in in a, in like about 100 120 strands of hair from your head really close. They still say that's hair follicle because the hair follicle is what grows the hair, and that's what puts the stuff into your hair. So it is testing the follicle, even though it's not uh, actually directly testing the follicle. If you get my point. Hey, Prismatics, how you doing? And Prismatics, thanks for the shout out with Jason. Appreciated that. Had a good time talking to him for a little bit last night. So yeah, and I get that what I'm talking about right now is a little dry, but it's kind of, but it's kind of important for understanding what happened. I mean, frankly, this entire screen is going to be a little dry, which is why I'm adding a little bit of color commentary as I'm going along. Because I've been reading it because I've been reading a whole bunch of stuff, and these two articles, this one gives more the generic, and the next one is kind of the numbers, which is the big part of what I wanted to show. But yeah, becoming a minor expert in hair follicle drug tests is not what I had on my bingo card. Yes, you always go to sleep. I mean, frankly, we'll see whether or not what I'm doing right now puts you to sleep. Eh. So after the hair is cut from your head, it's tested in a lab to determine if there's been any drug use for the last 90 days. And like I said, important thing to say 5 to 90 days. How it works, uses, and what to expect. In a hair follicle drug test, the sample hair is used, usually from the root or close to it, to screen for drug use. When you use drugs, they are absorbed into the bloodstream. This is important. When you use the drugs, they are absorbed into the bloodstream. And within each hair follicle, there's a blood vessel that feeds hair growth cells. If you've used any of these substances, those drugs are carried into the hair follicle, but it's not those drugs directly. I'm not sure that it's saying it here, but in the other stuff that I've read, it's not those drugs directly. Like it's not directly cocaine that's going into the hair. It is whatever happens within your body that metabolizes the drug. So when you ingest cocaine, there and your body metabolizes the cocaine, and then then metabolites or something like that are what come out of that, and that is what it's saying is fed into the hair follicle. So it's not like your hair suddenly has cocaine. I mean, if it did, then someone could take your hair and 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 get cocaine out of your hair, and I don't think that that's how that works. I mean, now, uh, geez, I've got a few interesting in things in my head right now for that, but I'm not going to go there because that's a little disturbing. But my point is that at what they're testing for is not the cocaine directly. They're testing for the stuff that your body would metabolize. So let's say that at Rekieta's kid, it had her hair dusted with cocaine. They're not even looking for the cocaine directly, so that wouldn't be coming up on their tests. And yes, the Rekieta situation does keep going into a bigger mess. It's disturbing, but I mean, it is what it is, and I'm I'm finding it fascinating in a certain way, especially since I used to be a fan. And so, well, if it's blowing up and he decides that he wants to give me content, I'm going to I'm going to use it. But I'm also not going to do it the same way that others are doing it, with going off with baseless speculation and yelling at each other and man. If you know what I'm saying. What I'm going to do is what I'm doing right here, where I go, wait, let's find out what a hair follicle drug test actually is and what these numbers mean. You know what I mean? So the hair follicle drug test can screen for various types of drugs, both prescription and illegal. Some of the drugs tested for include marijuana, the weed, cocaine, which is what we're looking at, amphetamines, methamphetamines, PCP, ecstasy, and opioids. So when you get the hair follicle drug test, and the hair sample that's taken must be taken directly from your head. Obviously, I mean that's the equivalent of when you get a urine test. They have to know that the urine is coming directly from you. So yeah, and in this case, they can actually directly go snip snip, which is even better. So of course you can't do it from a hairbrush. The sample has to include enough strands to equal about the thickness of a pencil. To to my understanding, in from some of the other stuff that I've read, it it comes out to needing about 100 to 120 strands of hair. It has to be about 1.5 inches long. Now the hair does not have to come from the hair doesn't have to come from your head. It can come from your armpit. It can come from pretty much any place where hair is grown, to my understanding. So, do, 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 do. Once your identity has been confirmed, let me. So yeah, I'm ignoring the confirmation of identity, but yeah, once we know that the hair is from you, yeah, like I said, 100 to 120 strands. Once your identity is confirmed, the lab technician or other personnel will cut about 100 to 120 strands of hair from the crown of your head. They may collect hair from other areas or multiple areas so they do not leave a bald spot. If you have very short hair or bald, the lab technician may take some hair from other parts of your body instead. The hair is then placed in foil, then in a security envelope, and is sent for testing. In other words, we've collected it, and then we make sure that it is securely taken care of. Whether you wash your hair, dye or bleach it, or use styling products, it will not affect the hair follicle drug test accuracy. They'll show any drug use within the last 5 to 90 days. So that this part talks about the drug test cutoff levels, which is that 500 thing. Hair follicle drug testing uses cutoff levels to indicate whether a test is negative or positive for the presence of specific drugs. So yeah, there are two parts to this testing method. Like it says, the industry standard involves two-tier testing method. There's initial screening on one part, which I believe, if from my reading, they call an ELISA test, as to which that first test is basically it, just a general test where it comes back negative. If it's negative, it comes back within 24 hours. And if it does not come back negative in 24 hours, then the second test happens. But that first test doesn't actually tell them anything other than it noticed something. And then the second part takes about 72 hours. So yeah, so that means that there is an initial screen on one part of the hair specimen, and then another test or confirmation test on another part. I don't like the way that they say or confirmation test, because this confirmation test is also, from what I understand, the test that actually tells what they are actually seeing. So it's not just confirmation, but I mean it would give the confirmation. So if nothing comes up on that, then it would go, okay, either inconclusive or negative if nothing came up there. But it's not just confirmation. So the first test is used to separate negative samples from any further testing. The second, more thorough testing, uses more definitive processes, including chromatography, mass spectrography, to identify and measure specific drugs in the sample. It's essential that cutoff levels are selected based on the substance tested for to comply with regulation standards. which we'll see down here. And in this one, the confirmation cutoff level is actually lower than in what they were using in Rekieta's case. It's only if a substance is identified at concentration levels that are equal to or greater than the cutoff that it will be reported as positive by positive result by the lab. It means a negative test does not necessarily mean there wasn't a drug indicated. It just means that if there was, it was in an amount lower than the cutoff level and therefore couldn't be reported. And then here's talking about how do you pass a hair follicle test. And here, this does feel like they're talking themselves up a little bit much, but there's only one sure way to pass a hair follicle drug test, and that is not to use any drugs for the 90 days before you take the test. This type of drug test, unlike urine tests, is nearly impossible to cheat because the person who takes a hair sample does so directly from your head. They're well trained to collect it. Now, all of this actually does assume that the people doing the test are following the proper procedures. And that is always something to be questioned. Obviously, if you rid your entire head and body of any hair, the test cannot be performed. However, that may very well mean that it be the same as native tests to some employers. There are special hair products out there that advertise they'll make your hair drug test come back negative. Don't be fooled by them; they don't work. I mean, I, there may be something that does. I don't know. The event that your hair follicle drug test comes back positive, you may be tempted to admit that you had been around drugs, like secondhand marijuana smoke, but that you yourself had not used them. This excuse won't work because the hair follicle drug test screens for the drug and the metabolites your body produces, which is what I was trying to say. Yeah, yeah, the test will only come back positive if you smoked or ingested the drug yourself. In other words, if your hair was exposed to marijuana, but you did not smoke or ingest it, your test would come back negative. And that would also be part of the reason why they have the cutoff level, because if you just got some secondhand smoke nearby, you may actually end up having some of it in the hair follicles, but it wouldn't be enough to pass the cutoff. So they wouldn't consider it to be you having actually used it. Now, this right here is very common of a lot of the articles that I was finding. All they would talk about was the cutoff levels. They would not talk about what it actually meant to have any specific amount higher. And the next article I'm going to go through actually he it he explains a little bit of why that was the case. And it's very interesting, and it is part of what says that people like Dick Masterson can fuck off. So unfortunately, this particular site really likes showing their part up here. So I can only show a small amount of it on here because is the way that they have their site made, and I have not gone into to screwing with it so that I can and change the way that they have their page formatted. You can only see about half the page at a time. But this is carolinatesting.com/level up, understanding drug test levels. And the drug test levels is one of the things that I was really looking for. And I didn't know to use the word level. I kept on trying to do searches for 5000 PG/MG, and eventually one of the articles I was reading gave me the word level somewhere in the article. And then I did a search on hair follicle drug test levels, and I found this article. So, oh, here we go. One of the most misunderstood and confusing aspects of drug testing, especially when it comes to drug test results, is around the term levels. Yes. Understanding what levels mean in the drug testing process requires an understanding of how drug testing is performed to begin with and what the final results really mean. There are three types of drug. There are three types of levels found on a typical drug test result report. They are screen cutoff level, confirmed cutoff level, and actual level, also known as test level. And one sec. And and it, and the test that they show here just says tested positive for cocaine at a level of over 5,000. So it actually does not tell us which one of those it is. All specimens undergo an initial screening process to determine if a specimen may contain a substance of interest. The screening process tests for a number of compounds that fall within a given drug class or panel. It is important to note that the testing methods in the screening process test an overall drug class known as a drug panel. The panel may include one or more specific drugs or drug metabolites. Again, we've got the metabolites. The exact drugs is within a drug panel may also vary depending on the laboratory. For example, an opiate panel from Lab A may include codeine, hydrocodone, and morphine, whereas Lab B's opiate panel may include codeine, hydrocodone, hydromorphone, morphine, oxycodone, and fentanyl. Basically, you need to look at what the lab is actually testing for. Screen cutoff level. Screen cutoff level is a predetermined cutoff level of an overall drug class that is established prior to the initial screening of the specimen. Funnily enough, this is similar to what I talk about when I talk about an objective review of something. That whatever you are, or that if you're going to be doing an objective review of something, you need to lay out what your criteria are before you screen in before you watch the movie. This is actually kind of where I've come up with how I talk about objective review. So it's interesting seeing this being stated here for screen cutoff level. But I mean, this is how scientific how the scientific method works and stuff. So yeah, if a specimen goes above this predetermined cutoff level for a drug class or panel, the specimen fails in the screening process and moves onto the confirmation or laboratory testing process. Screen cutoff levels will vary depending on the specimen type: urine, hair, saliva, nails. So yeah, this particular article is not talking about the hair follicle testing in particular. This is just explaining how to read the numbers, which I think is part of why I was having trouble, and I think other people might have had trouble finding information on this because we were looking for it under hair follicle testing, as as this is a more or whereas this is a more general thing to talk about. Most laboratories follow the cutoff levels recommended by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA. This does not guarantee that the cutoff levels established and used meet these recommendations. And here we've got cocaine. Screen 300, confirm 150. So yeah, that's what they got there. Confirmed cutoff level. The confirmed cutoff is predetermined cutoff level that was prior to laboratory testing of a specimen. This cutoff level may be different level number from the screening cutoff because the testing process at the confirmation level is completely different. Testing at the confirmation level uses highly specialized and calibrated equipment and processes. Unlike the screen level that screens the overall drug class, the laboratory confirmation testing analyzes specific drugs and drug metabolites within a specimen and develops a positive or negative result for each individual drug and or metabolite being tested. Now, to be fair, I do not think that these are numbers that we were being given in for Rekieta's kid. So just to be clear, I'm pretty sure that it was this first test that they were talking about. A positive result for a specific drug or metabolite will demonstrate at a certain level called the test level or actual level. So yay. And here in here it's showing it for cocaine, and it's showing in benzoylecgonine, cocaethylene, cocaine meta, and norcocaine. And so I'm assuming that those are the metabolites they were talking about. Then actual test level. This level simply provides a numeric level of detection of a specific drug or metabolite. This number is also the most misunderstood and misused number in the whole result reporting process of drug testing. And here we go. The only thing this number reflects is that if there is an amount of drug or drug metabolite that was found in the specimen being tested at the time of the specimen collection. This number can and will vary day to day, person to person, test by test, and report by report. By itself, the level found on a positive drug test as a result means absolutely nothing. This is the important thing that I found here, that the exact number doesn't actually mean anything. So it's like I said, the power level is 5,000. Doesn't actually mean anything. A common mistake people make is to compare the actual drug test levels to the confirmed cutoff number, thinking this will give them some degree of severity of use of use of a substance. This is not true. A drug test that reports as a positive test is a positive test, and that is all that it is. A positive test is a positive test, and it is a positive test, nothing more, nothing less. Those are close to but above the confirmed cutoff level are not considered almost negative. They indicate a positive drug test. The numeric drug test level does not indicate severity of use of the drug or metabolite detected. It merely provides a quantitative numeric value to level substance found at the time of testing. Every person's body reacts and metabolizes drugs at different speeds and quantities, making it impossible to compare one drug user to another using a single test to see who is the heavier drug user. Therefore, one cannot assume that the actual level number in comparison to the confirmed cutoff level indicates anything other than the specimen tested positive for the presence of the drug indicated. Okay, so this paragraph is one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this string. So, Rekieta's kid tested at 5,000. Kids have a really high, as a general rule, kids have a higher or higher slash faster metabolism than adults do. So my speculation based on this is if having a faster metabolism could actually get more of the stuff to metabolize into the bloodstream and then into the hair, would almost make sense that it would take a smaller amount of cocaine to be ingested to actually give the same amount to give the same level in the hair as would be for adults. This is only my speculation, but the reason why I say this is it was 5,000. Well, the same amount in a body that doesn't metabolize things as fast as a 9-year-old child might have come out to 1,650, 700. I mean, I don't know, but it makes sense to me that a child would actually have the faster metabolism, which, given all of this, could actually give a higher number. So, yeah, it being 5,000 does not actually mean that it this kid took the same amount of cocaine that would, as Dick Masterson says, would should kill the child. So fuck off to that, because he's trying to say that this test is obviously false, because if it weren't false, then the kid's dead. So fuck off to that. Also, however, for the people that claim that at this kid's hair could have gotten some cocaine powder on it, and that could have could have actually done it. No, this is testing for the metabolites in your bloodstream, which means that it had to be ingested somehow. My personal bet is that the kid found one of Rekieta's cocaine bullets, and do not see anything that I'm saying here as covering for Rekieta, because I'm not. I I am I'm kind of still close to where I was before we even found that this happened, because because I consider er, leaving cocaine around where your kid could find it to be equivalent to your kid actually finding it, because if your kid didn't find it, well, you were just lucky, but you still made the same actions, if you see what I'm trying to say. Even if the child didn't find the cocaine, but you still left it around, it's the same level of culpability. Now, what I do think that this is actually shows us that we didn't have before is that it beforehand, and still, we had people like Rekieta and Barnes and others say that this is a governmental conspiracy, that this cocaine and drugs were planted and all that stuff. But if this child has tested positive for having cocaine in their system in the last 5 to 90 days, that kind of shows that there was cocaine available for the child to have prior to the police is executing their search warrant. You see what I'm saying? So it kind of proves that there was cocaine to be had at that house. That's what I think this changes. It changes the idea that there wasn't anything to be that there wasn't anything, and this is a whole big setup. No, I mean, I never thought it was a setup in the first place, but I think that this actually does prove, as long as you're willing to believe the drug test, that this is not a setup. So now, just to be complete, since since we're just talking about how the drug test level number by itself means nothing, that does beg the question of why we actually get the exact drug test level. And 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 frankly, I was thinking the same thing. But this is a really good point, that it's if the actual level reported by itself is no meeting, what's the point of showing levels on the drug test as itself result itself? That's a great question, and the answer is an important one, especially when it comes to substance abuse tracking. Ding, ding, ding. Investigative and legal purposes. In cases of legal investigations or tracking substance abuse in an individual, levels are a valuable tool to determine if a drug user has abstained from further use or has continued using a specific drug or ramped up. Because even though oh like it's like they're saying, everyone has a different level of metabolism. This is called getting a starting point. So now we have the starting point of what this level is. So now, if 5 days later, 10 days later, we get another test, if the number is lower, then we can infer that you have had less over the last 90 days, that period, than you did in the previous 90-day period. I mean, I'm not saying that it's like 180 days, but like if it's 10 days apart, then then in approximately the last 90 days is minus those 10 days that are different, then you've had less in that period of 90 days. But if the number is higher, it means that you've ramped up your usage in the meantime. Or if it's the same, it means that you probably have not really changed what you've been doing. So that's what the use for the actual number would be. So yeah. Oh, and they're saying that never mind. And I missed something here. If the number of levels on subsequent tests is lower, then it means that the user has not engaged in additional drug use since last test, and a higher level would indicate continued use. My bad. I was thinking if you'd been using it consistently over the last 90 days, and then and and then abstained, and then it would be lower. But then if you used more, it would be higher. But if you kept the same amount, it would be the same. But if you only recently started using, then a higher amount would just indicate continued use. And a lower amount would indicate abstention. So yeah. So in summary, the purposes of levels report on drug test results itself are to assist in determining ongoing drug use or absence of use only. For initial testing purposes, levels displayed on an initial drug test only provide a starting point or benchmark from which to compare further testing. Single drug test level as a standalone number provides no evidence of the severity of use or abuse of a drug. Comparing actual levels to the screen or confirm cutoff levels does not provide an accurate or estimated measure of severity of drug use and should not be practiced. So, and this was posted in Drug and Alcohol Testing, Drug Testing, Legal / Court Ordered Drug Testing. So, that is what I have for you guys. Does anyone have any questions for me, or want to know in detail what I might think about some stuff? If not, I, I'm going to speculate a little bit, and this speculation I'm about to give is speculation only, and I want that to be clear. My speculation, and I really hope that this is not the case, but as I've been listening to what some other people have been and saying and speculating on their own, and one of the things that has come up that concerned me was that what one of the things that I'd seen, and this is part of what I was refuting with this, but that the 5,000 number er, is supposedly he indicated regular use of the drug. And this was, and when I was hearing that, this is before I'd done my own research to find this out. So, like I said, keep that in mind. But then it was pointed out, then I had it pointed out that Aaron Imholte from Steel Toe Morning Show, when talking to Nick about how much he was seeing Nick and April doing, that Nick was showing what was saying about how about how he's using about how he had read up on cocaine, and that cocaine actually reduces stress levels, and start talking about it in like talking about the medicinal uses of cocaine. And part of what really disturbs me there is that I have severe attention deficit disorder, and I will be right. I'll be right out there. I take methylphenidate, also known as Ritalin, which is in the same drug category as cocaine. And I have never tried cocaine, thank God. But I, but from what I've read and been told by my psychiatrist who prescribes me my meds, that cocaine actually would have the same effects on me that my Ritalin does, except that the Ritalin has a lot less of the really bad parts of cocaine, including the addiction portion of it. And if I know that, and if Nick has talked about cocaine's medicinal values, I don't know if his daughter has ADD or shows signs of ADD, but if she does, what really scares and worries me is that he might have decided that he has all this cocaine here with him. So why not help his daughter with his cocaine? And if that if that is the case, all of my neutrality, if I ever find out that that is actually what happened, all of my neutrality is gone. I don't believe that that is what happened, but I can't shake the idea that it's possible. Like I said earlier, I think that Nick was probably irresponsible with with one of his cocaine bullets, and I think that a kid, being a kid, found it and was curious about what the hell it was. That's literally what I think happened. But if this other thing is a possibility, which, by the way, when I was but before I had found out about what I just read out to you about how the number doesn't actually mean anything, I was really, I was actually almost convinced that that was the case because I couldn't see any other reason why a it the kid would be testing for regular drug usage. But since that is not actually the case, I am stepping back from thinking that that is actually what happened, and thank God for that. Now, for for what people say about why did only one of the five test positive, that by itself should show that that this test it should not be should not be taken seriously. Well, different kids figure out different things. Not all kids are going to be as curious as other kids in finding things. And since, as I already talked about, it's not like a powder of cocaine being in the air is going to, to cause as you to test positive through through the hair follicle test. So if only one of them actually ingested something, then only one of them ingested something. It doesn't prove anything one way or the other to say that only one of five. As my wife said, unless you think that Nick is sitting there having the kids line up and making them take it, which by the way, she was being sarcastic when she said that. Because I was explaining all of this to her as well, and she was like, "Yeah, that's bullshit." So, yeah, Dick Masterson and his critique of this can fuck all the way off, all the way off. So, yeah. So, would you guys like me to try to find what Dick Masterson actually said so I can show you? Because now that I'm actually in the mode of doing this, I think I could actually find that because the way that I was looking earlier was not the best way to look. So let's pull up advanced search, look for the name Rekieta. Oh, I don't know everything he said either. And I don't watch the asshole. Frankly, I can't stand what. It doesn't even matter what he says. as when I listen to him, his voice is nails on a chalkboard. Or even if he was saying hello, how are you? I'd I'd want to hurt him. But the things he says are even worse. But when I talk about what he said, I'm talking about what he said on Twitter. That's what I'm referring to, because that's all that I'm going off of, because I don't watch the asshole. So give me a sec. Dick Masterson, let's put you into the advanced search. Do latest. Okay, that's not it. So here we go. Give me one sec. Print screen. There's one. Do. Hey, it looks like he may have deleted the one I was specifically looking at before. Yeah, but I did find one that should work. So give me a sec. It doesn't show the exact one that had me, it, that actually kind of launched me doing this, but it shows enough. So screenshots. Just need to find. Is it captures? I always forget if my screenshot goes into captures or screenshots. If that makes any sense. Okay, definitely not captures. So pictures, screenshots. I'm doing this on the fly. Sorry. Here we go. Got it. And I'm doing it this way because I really don't want to show my actual Twitter account. You know what I'm saying? So share this tab. There we go. There we go. Yeah, you're just like many others out there that are just high school drama fucks. Exactly. And here we go. You don't think it's a little odd that 9-year-old tested so high and none of the other kids did? This is a small town government we're talking about here. Dick Masterson. Get your dick out of your mouth. Actually, get your dick out of Rekieta's mouth. And I just explained why the 9-year-old tested so high, none of the other kids did. It's not like even if they'd been dusted with cocaine that would have done anything. Oh, and something else that I did that didn't come up in that first one that I was showing. In in part of the process also includes washing the hair. I'm convinced that that's not because they need to wash the hair. I'm convinced that that's so that when an expert witness explains the process, they can just tell everybody that yes, if there was cocaine that touched the hair, it got washed off. Even if even if the test doesn't have anything to do with the actual cocaine, but it's testing the metabolites, it's going to be so much easier to just tell the jury that yes, if there's any cocaine that was on the hair, we already washed it off. Okay? But one of the other things that Dick Masterson said, oh, and actually this part wasn't Dick Masterson, but it had to do with Josh Null. And since this had to do with something that I responded to, I should be able to find this in my own notifications because I actually posted this myself as I was because I was trying to be transparent. So even if I don't agree with something, if someone says that, well, yeah, Nick is declining it and it is denying its authenticity, my response is going to be, well, yes, he is. And if I've seen something that actually tells me that that actually gives some evidence against what I believe, I will still share it, just like I'm about to right now. But it's another part of this. So, do 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 do. Here we go. Going to take a quick screenshot of this and share it. And now that I actually know where my screenshot is getting saved, this will go a lot faster. Okay. Okay. Share this tab. So there we go. Oh, so Rekieta messaged Josh Null, who is the owner of Kiwi Farms, for anyone who doesn't know that. And Rekieta messaged Josh out of nowhere to thank him for locking the thread. And it wasn't known if the document was real at the time. And then said the test was a false positive. And I would say, how does Rekieta know that's a false positive? I mean, it is possible. I would not be all that surprised to find out that at and taking Ritalin, for example, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that taking Ritalin and could actually give a false positive for cocaine. So there's that. But when you take these tests, you kind of give the list of your prescriptions to them as well. So if the kid was taking in methylphenidate like I do, I would imagine that they had that information. So Null says he messages me out of the blue to say two things: to thank me for locking the thread, to deny that his child tested positive for cocaine. He claims the test is faulty, is testing a metabolite which exists outside of the body, which what the hell is he talking about there? And also that the levels of cocaine that they're suggesting she had in her would indicate that she should be dead. And once again, the number doesn't mean that. And with that, I bid you adieu. the test that his daughter had, whereas it is not bulletproof because there's always a possibility of human error, or if procedures were followed, then these claims that she would have been dead if she had these levels are not necessarily accurate. And and even so, if if that stuff were true and they got these levels from stuff that exists outside the body, that's admitting to having the cocaine around her in the first place. So you're actually admitting to endangering her in your attempt to claim that she couldn't have had it. So you're fucking up both ways. So even if what he says is right, he's still admitting to endangering his child. And and this indicates a lack of understanding of how these tests works. And that goes for Dick Masterson, who, like you say, he really has not gotten past as to being high school drama fucks. But there's others, specifically Robert Barnes of Barnes Law, who is a lawyer himself, who talks very authoritatively on these matters, who in a lot of ways I have respected in the past, but I was hearing him talk on his locals about just how inaccurate these tests are, and how these tests could be affected by residue in the air and stuff like that. And frankly, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of people who should know better, who who present their knowledge as fact, being able to be fact checked by someone like me. Now, to be clear, I do have a high opinion of myself, but I am not a world class lawyer who talks about how defending children against the state in court all the time, which is one of the things that he was saying. What I am is somebody who helps people with special needs for a living, and I am a mandatory reporter myself, and I have help special needs is especially the adults, but a good amount of these special needs adults I've worked with, I've had to deal with cleaning up from them being abused as children. It's sad when that happens. I'm not saying the majority, but I've had multiple that I've had to, and I've had to deal with some stuff that has to do with drugs too, sexual abuse. Yeah, I've had to deal with cleaning up shit, and so I've got that part, and the other part is I have a master's in computer science. I was on the track to get a PhD, and I will fully admit that I did not finish the PhD, but I know how to do research, which is part of why it didn't take me that long to find out this stuff once I got a bug up my ass and started looking. So why can't these people who act like they know what the fuck they're talking about, who have these degrees that show that look at how good I am, and they show their pedigree, I'm so awesome. Why is someone like me able to find this stuff in about a day? And that's while I'm in the middle of doing work with my clients, and I'm just noodling around on my phone. And I find the stuff that I just presented to you over the last hour. But these guys can't do it. There's two reasons. One of the reasons is that they don't want to know the actual truth because they want to present their side of the story, and they don't want to find out how, how what what the reality is. And the other is possibly worse, that they actually know the reality. and they are more than happy to lie, eh, with the understandable belief that and, that if they say something confidently enough, you're just going to believe them rather than looking yourself. What I will promise each and every one of you is that at any point that I present material on this case or anything else serious, I'm not going to be going off of the words of someone else. I may listen to them, and that may actually spur me to go look and find documents for myself. But what I'm going to be speculating on is going to be speculating on documents that I have found as close to firsthand as possible. And that's the best that I can say. So I guess I did say I bid you adieu about like 5 minutes ago or so. But now I think I actually do, unless anybody from the peanut gallery wants to ask for clarification on anything. And thank you. Yes, context and research is key. The the way that I put that is it is actually a little bit more succinct. Context is king because because when you get the context, then and then you also tend to get the research too. Because when you get the context, if things still don't make sense, then that means you need to go find the context for the context, which is the research. So thank you to everybody for listening to me spurg out about this. This was my follow-up to my Wednesday stream, which I think may actually have been longer than my Wednesday stream. But if you haven't seen my Wednesday stream, that will give you more context to why I did this. So thank you to everybody for coming and watching. I really appreciate it. Okay, so well, so with that, I am going to end it.